and he couldn't substantiate those. So I met with the council, of course. I met with Mr. Kurang and the commissioners. It was on that, with that in mind, that I went to see His Excellency the President. So all along, I had assumed that that removal was premised on my exchanges with the commissioners, council, Mr. Kurang himself, and His Excellency the President.
That's fair enough to you, if I'm honest. However, you can see what this committee is grappling with. It seems that the reasons why Mr. Kurang was sacked is because he did not heed to instructions from cabinet.
I'm not sure that I would agree with that, because otherwise he would have been sacked before I actually went to see His Excellency on his case. So I wonder why he wasn't sacked up until that point.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, if the reason that you were preferring for his sacking was based on his relationship with the President's office, in particular the Office of the Secretary General, then I'm wondering why he wasn't sacked soon after the relationship went south. That it had to take my intervention at the level of His Excellency the President for him to be sacked at that point. Not sacked, but for him to be removed from his, relieved of his duties at that point. So I'm just saying, I wonder whether that would really be the reason.
Well, from the evidence we have before this committee, or rather the evidence that was provided to the committee, it was in fact said to the committee by Mr. Cisse that was, well, he did not say it in these words, but that was the beginning of the end for Mr. Kurang.
I wasn't even aware of the exchanges between Mr. Kurang and Mr. Cisse at all.
Okay. All right, so it is clear eventually he was sacked.
He was relieved of his duties
okay.
as secretary.
I prefer that as well. He was relieved of his duties. So the rationale for relieving him of his duties, we've looked at State House's rationale as put to us by Mr. Ibrahim Cisse, which is the ill-advised version. Now the advised version, the properly advised version, let's say that the working relationship had soured beyond repair. Let's look into the petition. Honorable Chair, RS 69. If the Secretariat could assist the witness with RS 69. Is that the document you refer to when you refer to the petition?
And what I have here, RS69, is a letter from Ami Bensouda addressed to me and to the chairman of the commission.
I see. Well, that's the response to the
Petition.
Yes, okay. Well, in the meantime, we look for the counterpart, the initial letter, which is in fact the petition. But in the meantime, let's scrutinize that. Just briefly, what were the reasons Mr. Kurang felt he needed to write a petition? Do you recall?
Not all of them. In fact, not most of them. I can recall one or two.
Go ahead.
Among Mr. Kurang's allegations against Council Bensouda was that Council was interested in stopping the sales of the tractors because she was, now I'm recollecting from the contents, so
Sure.
I'm using my words loosely here.
That's all right. But Committee Secretary, let's look at AMK 5. Please proceed.
Well, since we have found it now, I think for accuracy, let's look at it rather than me
That's all right.
taking the risk of using words that may not be appropriate.
Once you have had a chance to look at it, please confirm if that's indeed the document.
I cannot confirm if this is indeed the document. It's not signed, but it's what I have been giving here. I don't recall what the document looked like at the time.
That's all right. Just identify the document. I can tell you that this document is from Mr. Alhaji Mohammed Kurang.
Council, you can use my copy.
That's fine. Yeah. Whether it's signed or not, it has been admitted as evidence and by the respective witnesses, and all the submissions are now official evidence, and we can rely on them. So.
What would you like me to do, Council?
Confirm whether that's the...
I cannot confirm, but let's assume that it is the document that I am giving. What do you want me to do with the document? I don't recall the contents.
Well, my question was, what were the reasons
Yes.
Mr. Kurang...
If you tell me this is the document, I mean, it's clearly the one that I recall seeing is signed, and it was copied to a number of people, so I'm not sure why a signed copy was not produced. This is CC to the President, to the Chairman and Commissioners, to me, the Attorney General, to the Solicitor General, to file and Mr. Kurang's own copy. So there must be a few copies around.
We have several copies of this particular.
All
document,
signed.
but yes,
Okay.
this is the most convenient act now
Okay.
for the continuity of these particular proceedings. But be rest
Okay.
assured, the team is looking for other versions of the document.
No, it's fine, except that you're asking me to confirm, and I cannot confirm.
All right, perhaps then let's rely on your recollection.
I have a signed one.
Is that AMK or SC?
I found not in AMK.
We have four submissions of this document.
Anyway, it doesn't matter, because either way, I hesitate to confirm what is not mine.
I believe it's Secretary to Cabinet. What's the folio number?
Can you show that to me? Okay.
Can you confirm that that's the petition?
You're asking me to confirm whether this is the petition. This is certainly a signed version of the petition, but let's assume it is.
Okay.
Let's assume it is.
Do you recall what the reasons for the petition were and what the petition sought to achieve?
Well, the petition makes a number of allegations, factual allegations against lead counsel, and from what I am seeing now, it actually even questions the professionalism of lead counsel by making allegations of selective questioning of witnesses and you know, a lot of other things. But there are a number of allegations in the petition.
All right. Were the allegations substantiated by Mr. Kurang?
As far as I was concerned, no,
And why do you say that?
because I had a meeting with Mr. And asked if he could provide evidence of the allegations he has made against lead counsel
Where was this meeting held?
in my office.
You summoned, no, well, let me not use the word summoned.
I
You
invited him to my
invited him
office.
to your office.
Yes.
And asked and put,
And asked if he could substantiate the allegations he made.
okay, and what was the result of that?
Well, he told me clearly that he's the one who was involved. He knows the facts, and he couldn't produce anything beyond what he was saying.
Well, not to speak to the other issues in detail, because I am aware that lead counsel Ms. Bensouda has not been before this committee, so we cannot establish a lot of the grounds here on this petition as fact. But I would like you to look at the portion that talks about selective questioning of witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
Can we read that portion together?
It reads, I have written to you several memos of the Commissioner's wish to call material witnesses on material issues. You have been requested to recall Social Security on the status of their properties, and now it seems you have given it a deaf ear. all indications are that you're completely conflicted in most aspects of the Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation asset dealings. It would seem apparent to me, and looking at the attachments here, that investigations into dealings of ex-president and public corporations cannot be objectively completed while you remain in charge. Gampet, Social Security and Housing Finance, NAWEC, Gamtel, and MSA, crude oil, etc. are critical national interests that you are clearly conflicted in a way that is fatally dangerous to Commission's mandate.
You see, I do not wish to belabor on the issue of conflict and the issue of terms of reference, but like I said earlier, they keep haunting us in the course of our investigation.
I don't understand. Just because allegations of conflict are made does not mean they exist.
All right. And I would agree for most of the petition, and that's why I don't wish to tread on that line. Perhaps the members can engage you on that. But when you look at the institutions named here, let's zero into Social Security. I believe that is the first concern I showed with regards to the conflict of interest.
Yep.
And here is Mr. Alhaji Mamadi Kurang, the secretary to the commission, raising the same concern.
Yes.
Mid-stride into the committee's dealings.
And that concern was addressed sufficiently by Ms. Bensouda's recusal.
Was that the same for the other institutions?
Was there evidence that Ms. Bensouda had dealings, as I said yesterday, in the form of a long-term retainership with all these other institutions, or were they ad hoc? I don't know.
And
but
also,
the fact remains, it wasn't substantiated. That's the point.
That's a good point. But I would also make another point to say that this conflict was foreseen from the beginning. And it caused fracas.
I think we dealt with this exhaustively yesterday. And
Indeed.
my point remains, from my experience, you deal with conflict on a case-by-case basis when it arises or when it potentially may arise. And that's the point when you deal with the conflict. And I gave the example of you being on a panel where there are many applicants for a job, including your wife. You don't recuse yourself right from the start. You recuse yourself from from being involved in the process with respect to your wife only. But that doesn't stop you from dealing with the other applicants. That was just to simplify the issue of conflict, because it's not just you here I'm talking to.
I understand.
The public don't understand how conflict works in this country. Once they see conflict, they think the entire process is tainted, and that's not really the case.
I understand, and it is true that conflict should be dealt with as it arises. But, you know, we had a divergence in opinion or in view as to when the conflict arose. And also looking at the fact that the government intended this to be a transparent, trusted commission. I'm not saying it wasn't, but such an issue can be a threat to that.
And that's why it was dealt with transparently as well.
But it could have been dealt with much earlier, because it was known to all parties much earlier.
But when you say it could have been dealt with much earlier, it could only be dealt with when it arose. They were dealing with other state-owned enterprises.
But it arose from the beginning. That's my point.
No, the commission was not. The commission did not start with Social Security.
But the commission knew that they would deal with Social Security.
And when they got to Social Security,
just like the scenario with my wife, I said, here you have my beautiful wife and 4 others, right? Of course, if I am to recuse myself in the session with my beautiful wife, I would still be prejudiced. I could still take that prejudice to the other candidates, you know.
Well, that's not how conflict works in my experience. I
Okay.
think conflict is case specific and it's dealt with as it arises or potentially the risk of it arising.
That's fine. But back to the petition, I can say for at least for Social Security, that was substantiated.
Yes, and that was dealt with. That's why Ms. Bensouda recused herself, and I appointed Musa Bachili to step in as counsel for that duration and that issue.
Honorable Chair, I noticed that your mic is on. Did you want my attention? Good. All right, you said it was dealt with.
Indeed.
Of course, the committee would contend with you that it was dealt with, although it's better late than never, I would say, but it was not dealt with when it arose.
No, it only arose when it was time for the commission to probe into Social Security.
The conflict existed because the commission knew it would probe into Social Security.
Yes, but there were other state-owned enterprises that the commission was also probing, which had nothing to do with lead counsel.
True.
So there's nothing stopping her from being involved in the probe of those state-owned enterprises.
True. If you want to split the work in that way, yes.
But it is split in that way. Social Security is different from the other state-owned enterprises.
True. But then council advises the commission as a whole on the exercise as a whole.
Except when it comes to matters where she may be potentially conflicted, which is what occurred in this case, and she stepped aside.
Yes, but that conflict arose much early on. I don't wish we're not going to agree on this.
I don't
issue.
think we will ever agree on
Yes,
this one.
we are not going to agree on this issue. Perhaps we can just put it to bed. But perhaps what we can do is go through each issue limb by limb,
Okay.
and just have a short discussion on it. The first one was interference with the commission's orders. What did you understand by that? I mean, instead of...
I can't recall, so I have to read through it. It's been a number of
Would you
years.
want to read aloud, or do you want us to give you a second to read?
If we take that up with council, we are going to spend some time on this petition and the response. And
Well, the issues that we're dealing with now are definitely pertinent issues, and we will spend time.
okay, because to be honest, I obviously I defer to you. You're the one in the driving seat here, but I don't see the criticality. Let me use that word. The criticality of the allegations that are made here. We all know there were allegations made. If you are interested in any one of the allegations and want to make a point, please be my guest. Let me know. Draw my
I believe
attention.
I've made
to
my point already. What I intend to do now is to let the record reflect the limbs of Mr. Alhaji Muhammad Kurang.
But if the evidence, if the documents are part of the record, then you don't need to read it out loud for it to be part of the record.
True.
I am assuming this is
However, this is a public hearing,
yes.
and the record extends beyond what is in custody of the committee.
But this was published at the time. I'm not sure if you know that. The petition was published in newspapers and on social media.
We're not aware of that.
Oh yes, absolutely.
But
It was published, and yeah.
Thank you for enlightening us. But for those people like myself who were not aware of the publication,
Who were not in the country.
exactly. So that there are Gambians in the diaspora who are interested in these proceedings.
They are more informed than we are here, believe me. In fact, they are too informed.
I wouldn't argue with you on that. And, yeah. But anyway, I still insist that we go through each limb. You don't need to read it out loud, but let's go through each limb, each issue. We can say something brief about it and then we move on. And then proceed to lead council's response.
So you want me to go through it quietly and then we can, because I thought you wanted the point is for the public.
All right, so yes.
So what do you want me to do?
The first limb was interference with the commission's orders. Just give us a rundown of what Mr. Kurang suggested here?
I'd rather stick to the words that Mr. Kwang uses so that Mr. Kwang will not have me on Facebook tonight. So can I read what Mr. Kwang said?
It seems like I missed the joke. Fair enough. Let's use Mr. Kurang's words.
Thank you. Point 1, interference with the Commission's orders. One cannot fail to notice that you have been putting a spanner in the works of the Commission. Your role in the livestock and vehicles orders have left much to be desired. In a visit to the offices of the Finance Ministry, I was accompanied by your junior counsel, Mr. Ibrahim Koli, and Fatou Drame MOJ. We were told by the Permanent Secretary that Amadou Sane's attempt to sell vehicles belonging to the ex-president was preceded by constant communication between you and Honorable Sane. I was totally shocked to hear that the lead counsel of all people, who told me in black and white that she had no knowledge about the Ministry of Finance attempt to sell, was actually in touch with the Minister Amadou Sane to frustrate the Commission's order. With the tractors, your actions in the past few days suggest explicitly and implicitly that you have been orchestrating political interference in frustrating the tractor sales. It does not tally well that the string, I'm actually reading verbatim, so if there's a grammatical error, that you have been orchestrating political interference in frustrating the tractor sales. It does not tally well that the strange and dubious instructions are coming from the office of the Secretary General, who is your brother, supporting your nuances and dispositions. For the livestock, your complete silence after the sales fiasco is inconsistent with your aggressive pursuit of intervention prior to the fiasco.
This was not substantiated in your office.
How? No, it was not.
There was also the issue of interference and manipulation of the Commission budgets, which I would ask whether it was substantiated or not.
I would encourage you to use allegations of XXX. But yes, they remain unsubstantiated as at the time I met with Mr. Kwan.
What about the allegation that Mr. Ami Bensouda and Co. law firm competing with the Commission?
In what way?
Well, the text is there. We can read it for context.
You want me to read?
Yes, we can. This one is too short.
I read. Paragraph 4 of the petition. You have decided to identify and recommend for the receivership of assets owned by Social Security and Jammeh Foundation for Peace to PROM, while your law firm is making moves that financially disadvantage the Commission's receiverships. If you are representing other parties in helping them recover funds of your law firm, will naturally conflict with the interests of the taxpayer and possibly affect the investigations or provide you a disproportionate advantage in inside information that you could possibly use to the advantage of clients other than the Commission or MOJ and the receiver. Considering that landed properties and not cattle or tractors is best option to recover money from ex-president's financial dealings, your legal representations could potentially become injurious to the public interest in recovering money from Jammeh.
Do you believe that that was substantiated?
it was neither substantiated nor did it amount to conflict in my personal view.
I will not use that opportunity to go through that door again. So we can move to the next issue. Your connection to witnesses is compromised. And I believe he was referring to Mohammed Bazi and Badi Mazeji.
You want me to read that as well?
Not quite.
Okay.
And the last one was professional judgment. We can read professional judgment and conclude with that.
It's better for
Okay. Please proceed.
Okay, on the allegations of connections to witnesses is compromising, I read, as you cross-examine Mohammed Bazi and Fadi Mazegi, you certainly would not say that you and your firm have not benefited from their financial adventures directly or indirectly. You are surely in possession of materials I personally handed to you that show key members of their legal team, Farage and Andrews, participating in helping Jammeh misappropriate property to his family and children. Your cross-examination of such personnel is at best a joke and worst an offense to the taxpayer. Have your list of close associates been exhausted then? In the ping-pong of list of asset declarations, you have defended people purportedly on neutral grounds. What the attachments here show is that what was projected to be neutral might actually smell of collusion and vested interest in transfer and disposal of AU villas. No matter how you analyze it, the public interest cannot be guaranteed while you control the investigation into these matters.
You mentioned that it was not substantiated. Was it?
Not to me until the time I left.
But I would like to just point out one thing. See, public perception, which was a key consideration of yours, is important. And not only public perception, but in the context of the commission, the perception of the working elements of the commission matter. Here is a secretary who has some distrust in the legal team, or rather the lead counsel, which in my view, in my humble view, could have been mitigated. Now, the allegations put in Mr. Kurang's petition, especially in this portion, I would perhaps say could have benefited from better language and context. We needed to understand a few things. I would refuse to believe that the lead counsel would drop the ball on a witness. But I can understand Mr. Kurang's frustration, because these things could have been mitigated. The conflict again arose early on, and to say that you will firefight it when it arises proper, when the commission was going to deal with it, was for me a mistake.
Counsel,
Please go ahead.
just because Mr. Kurang imagines a conflict does not mean there is a conflict. And as counsel, I'm sure you know that allegations have to be substantiated. It's the minimum.
Indeed.
And without substantiation, you can't take action on mere allegations. And up to this point, these were just mere allegations.
I agree with that statement wholeheartedly, except for you mentioned something. It startled me a bit. I forgot. Let me.
Allegations need to be substantiated.
Not that in your preamble that Mr. Kurang imagined the conflict. And
Well,
now I want to shift to defend Mr. Kurang, because in all honesty, he did not imagine the conflict. The conflict existed. The conflict was not dealt with from the appointment stage. It was dealt with when it arose. And it was dealt with, to be fair, to the Commission and to Ms. Bensouda in a very appropriate manner. But to the government, that could have been foreseen. And there was a need to preserve the perception,
but
not only the external perception, but the internal perception as well. And I think that's where the government failed.
But Council, if I recall correctly, your position consistently has been conflict existed from day one with respect to social security.
Indeed.
This part is not about social security. This part is talking about Mohamed Bazi and Fadi Mazegi.
Oh,
So
I'm not
I don't-
weighing in this part. If you can recall, what I said was, I would be skeptical to weigh in on the other issues. But when it comes to issue 3,
But you did ask me whether you asked me to comment on this paragraph after reading it.
yes, I did.
So my response is tailored specifically to this paragraph about it not being substantiated.
Yes, and my question is hinged on the 3rd paragraph, even though it has a nexus to the second issue, but it's hinged on the 3rd issue. That perception is important, and even though we would better understand it as legal personnel, and I said I would be shocked, and I would not want to think that learned senior counsel Mrs. Bensouda would drop the ball on a witness. But I can understand Mr. Kurang's frustrations.
You know why I don't mind us going over this conflict thing? Because you see, I'm sorry to say this, and it's not being said in any condescending way, but even amongst our colleagues at the bar, the level of understanding about conflict is not too great, and that's not for lack of intellect, etc. It's just that conflict is not, issues of conflict is not commonly canvassed in this jurisdiction, as far as I recall. And so many people don't understand what conflict means, how it arises, if it arises, how it is resolved. And it's even worse amongst the amongst non-lawyers in our society. People run with the concept of conflict, and they say all kinds of things about conflict. I don't even understand what it means. And so I am using this opportunity to help share information about issues of conflict. But particularly the fact that just because there is conflict, even if it exists, in fact, it does not taint an entire process. Because there are mechanisms, some are built-in systems to deal with conflict by virtue of being explicitly provided for or implicitly when it arises as a practical mechanism of dealing with it. So just because somebody makes allegations of conflict, uses the word conflict, does not mean there is conflict. In this case here, Mr. Kurang has used the word conflict. It's not about defending Mr. Kurang or not. It's about whether the allegations are substantiated. And as far as I was concerned, there was no shred of evidence that was brought to me to substantiate the allegations here.
That is all the allegations.
Every one of them.
Okay. You know, I understand that take. I have a slight take on it, and I would agree with you. A lot of practitioners and non-practitioners are a bit hazy on the issue of conflict. I can assure you I will not be one of them. And I can assure you that I am hushed on the issue of conflict, and I've looked at it from every lens, and I've tried to be as fair to you and as fair to Mr. Kurang, and as fair to the committee as well in my work. You see, there's this There's this famous judicial pronouncement of the House of Lords that I love. It's Carter versus Bradbeer, and Lord Diplock had stated that words mean whatever they mean to the majority of the members in the appellate committee. And I can even go on to say, and I know Ms. Janet Sala would agree with me wherever she is, that whatever the majority of the public says a word means is what it's understood to be. Now, I say that to say that one of your key considerations was public perception. And you understand that Gambians have a problem with conflict of interest, and they don't understand it. Perhaps the prudent thing to have done was to bring everything to Gambian standards with respect to that issue. Because public perception needed to be bought. And the only way it could be bought is if the public are on the bandwagon to agree that the process was transparent.
So in other words, if I get you correctly, you wanted us to define conflict to meet the understanding of ordinary Gambians.
I am taking cue from where you left off, but in my view, conflict is properly defined. In my view, from the date of appointment, the conflict arose, and there was a conflict of interest. How it was dealt with, in fact, it wasn't dealt with at the time. So I'm not saying that conflict should be redefined. I'm saying that if that is the case, that Gambians do not understand conflict, not only Gambians but even professionals who ought to know the nitty-gritties around conflict, do not understand it, then perhaps even professionals who ought to know the nitty-gritties around conflict do not understand it, then perhaps professionals who ought to know the nitty-gritties around conflict do not understand it, then perhaps herself, one Miss Fatou Drame, and one Miss Keba Boja.
To the best of my recollection, those were junior officers to DPS. They were not at the level of DPS.
But we're not talking about DPS. We're not talking about the MOJ now.
Well, yes. We're talking
about the commission.
Well, those were not appointed as assistant secretaries. I am assuming that Miss Amatlaisa would have received some form of communication from the office about her new role or about her adjusted role. Would that be the case? Do you have communications?
I would want to ask you that, but from the record...
You know, you're asking me again. I keep telling you I'm not responsible for operational matters.
Fair. From the record, the only individual who bothered to brief her of her role was your humble self. She did not get one leaflet of paper to suggest that this is her role, one leaflet of paper to say that she's going to be deployed on a full-time basis. She was given instructions verbally by yourself that you're going to the Commission of Inquiry on the temporary basis to step in for Mr. Kura.
And she didn't see it fit to go to the Solicitor General and ask for her appointment letter?
She asked that her appointment letter be given to you, and to her rather, and you informed her, this is her version of events of course, you informed her that it would come subsequently.
Yes, I'm saying, you wouldn't have asked her if she subsequently went to the Solicitor General to follow up on that letter?
What she stood by was that they said the letter was coming and it was a temporary appointment.
But she didn't go to follow up on the letter from her boss?
You know what's so good about this? She'll be back next week. I'll be sure to ask her.
You should ask her.
Indeed.
What effort she did to make sure that her appointment letter was given to her.
I will ask her. In fact, I'm not sure whether she wants me to prolong her testimony.
I feel sorry for her because I know the kind of personality she is.
I also feel sorry for her. I mean, it's very hard to go and work at an institution in the dark. No letter,
it was not in the dark.
No,
it was not in the dark. The Commission of Inquiry Act provided guidance, and it was up to the Commission to tell her what to do and what not to do.
But it was not the Commission who hired her, once again.
What do you want me to say to that, Council? I have given you my position that we wanted the Commission to exercise independence in the best way it saw fit. We deployed our resources for the Commission's use, and the Commission made use of those resources.
When you say we, are you referring to
the Ministry of Justice? Yes.
Not the government of the Gambia.
I told you several times, I can't speak for the government. I can only speak for the MOJ and what we did.
All right, that's all right. Ms. Sarr had mentioned that once she had taken control of her desk, she realized that that was the only thing she was in control of. She was not involved in meetings because she was not told she was supposed to be going to meetings. In fact, what she was told was that she needed to go and report to the chairperson, and that's what she did. Every single thing that she did was an instruction from the chairperson.
But that was what the role of a secretary is to a commission.
I would disagree. Section 6 of the Commission of Inquiry Act defines what the role of a secretary is.
Can we go through the section, please? Let's go through it. Let me have a copy of it.
As you please. Secretariat. Mr. Tambedou, I was attempting to open the pages for you. I forgot that you have some decades of experience, and you would be able to maneuver the book.
Please help me. I'm a bit rusty when it comes to the laws of the Gambia.
As you please. So it's chapter 30. Or
Chapter
1.
30.
Or 1, yes.
What page? Chapter 30 or 1? Okay.
Yes.
Cap 30 you mean?
Yes.
Cap 30, okay. Yes.
Are you at chapter 30?
Yes, I am.
Section 6.
Yes, certainly.
I believe the header note says power to appoint secretary and his or her duties.
Yes.
You can read it out loud.
I'm glad I requested for this provision again.
I'm happy to. I can
Section
see,
6
I can
says,
see what you're seeing, but I don't think it will end the way you foresee.
Section 6 says,
Yes.
the President may appoint a secretary to attend the sittings of the Commission, to record their proceedings, to keep their papers, to summon witnesses and minute their testimony, and generally to perform such duties connected with the inquiry as the commissioners shall prescribe. You see, Counsel, going back to your earlier question as to whether it may or may not amount to a defect if there is no secretary, the appointment of a secretary is actually discretionary. It's not mandatory.
Before we embark on this debate, perhaps let's also look at section 200 of the Constitution.
Okay, but I'm just saying based on this reading here now.
That's why I wish to
because section
to refer you to the Constitution now.
Okay.
Because
yep.
Because
and so it is clear what the responsibilities of the secretary is, because all of these a secretary should perform when the commissioners prescribe. So it is at the instance of the commissioners. So whether or not we have given the secretaries a job description, the bottom line remains all of these things that are outlined here will only be done as prescribed by the commissioners, in the manner, in the way that the commissioners prescribe.
yes, but one thing is clear is that the commissioners have no authority to say that the secretary should not sit in the sittings. Another thing is that he should not record the proceeding.
No, you're reading now. We're now getting into the realm of interpretation or statutory interpretation.
We are.
And in my reading of this provision, the commissioners do have that power, because you see, all of these activities that the secretary may do, they may only do as prescribed by the commissioners. If the commissioners do not prescribe for the secretary to do any number of the acts outlined here, and this is my interpretation at the top of my head right now, I may change my view depending on further research, etc., or further consideration. But I'm just saying the literal interpretation here is that the final authority on what the secretary may or may not do rests with the commissioners.
I would contend with you on that. In fact, I would strongly disagree.
Okay.
What I would say is that what you're reading is the last limb of Section 6. And that last limb is an opener. It's omnibus. It's an opener to not to restrict the role of a secretary. And it says, and that means everything in the forward would have to be carried out in addition to any other thing that the commission decides for him to do.
I am not a drafts person, so I will not debate much.
That's fine.
Into the interpretation given.
That's fine.
You may absolutely be correct, and that's why I said my reading of it is that it's different from your reading of it, and because I know as a matter of law that you have to read the provision as a whole and not severally or separately, if you like. You have to read it as a whole. But this is not a legal forum, so let's not bore the committee members and members of the public on legal jargon.
Certainly, and I agree with you. It has to be read as a whole, and that's what I. All right. So there was no substantive holder of the secretary position.
You were referring to the Constitution, Section 200, with respect to the secretary. Can you point me to the specific provision of Section 200 that talks about the appointment of secretary?
Sure. Let me just get to it.
Because I do not certainly recall the provision relating to appointments of a secretary in the Constitution. And I'm struggling to find it now, but clearly it is in the Commissions of Inquiry Act.
Yes, I'm also struggling to find it, if I'm honest. Does the Secretariat have another hard copy of the Constitution?
But you know, I will not be surprised if there are different versions of the Constitution that contain different provisions, because that is why we wanted to amend, or rather
Consolidate.
Adopt a new Constitution for the country, because there were so many amendments, some of which you cannot find in some of the texts.
Is that an indirect blame to the National Assembly?
No comments.
All right, that's fine. I mean, it's an issue we can circle back on. You are here tomorrow as well.
But for the time being, the Commission of Inquiry Act is what we have here, and I think the power of the President to appoint a secretary is discretionary, based on a prima facie reading of the provision.
Yes, it's discretionary only to him.
Yes.
And not to the Attorney General or the commissions.
Well, the President, if the President did not appoint another secretary, then he has exercised that discretion.
Fair enough. I agree.
By deduction.
Yes. Okay. So Ms. Ramatullah Sar was Ms. Ramatullah Sar was appointed as the new, sorry, not the new secretary, but was asked to assume her role on a full-time basis.
Exactly. Yeah.
Your discussion with the president to dismiss Mr. Alhaji Mamadou Kurang, did it involve a suggestion that you should appoint such and such a person, or whether that you would have such and such a person step in?
No, because we were hoping that the commission was going to wind up soon after that. You see, if you go back, again, I keep saying the commission was appointed for an initial 3 months. Those 3 months were extended to another 3 months, and another 3 months, another 3 months. So we got to a point, particularly here, where the commission was already in operation for almost a year, and really, I in particular was hoping that they would wind up their work, because I had to continue coming before the National Assembly to request for approval for their remuneration, and every time I came here, even though ultimately they would approve, but they would subject me to a lot of painful processes.
Honorable Mbo isn't here, but I'm sure he would have been one of those.
I'm sure he would have agreed, absolutely.
All right, so you did not advise the president to appoint a subsequent person because you were of the belief that they were winding up at the time,
Absolutely.
even though they went for another year.
even though they went for almost another year.
Well, true. It was about 9 months.
Almost, that's right. Almost another year.
All right, so Ms. Ramatulai Sarr was also not given an appointment letter the second time around. The first time she was appointed as deputy
She
secretary.
wasn't giving a letter to ask her to report on a full-time basis?
She was not given a letter to ask her to report on a full-time basis.
Okay.
The person that was given a letter was the chairperson, to expect.
A letter was written to the commission
To the
chairperson
commission, yes.
to inform him that Ms. Ramatulai Sarr was going to assume her role on a full-time basis.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So Ms. Ramatulai Sarr did not know what role she was going to assume. In fact, from then on, she started signing as assistant secretary.
But you told me that according to Ms. Sarr's testimony, she was asked to report to the chairman of the commission.
Yes.
Which is what
Verbally by yourself.
which was consistent with what we also did with Alhaji Koa. Report to the commission, let the commission determine for you the specific responsibilities that they want you
But you
to
had
carry out.
appointed Mr. Alhaji Mahmadi Quran, both in the legal notice and through a letter conveyed by the Solicitor General.
Yes, without, as you said, without giving him the job description.
Yes.
And what we said to him was to report to the chairman of the commission where he will be guided. And it's the same approach that we took with Mr. Ramatulai Sarr. It would have been inconsistent if had we provided a job description for one and not the other. But again, the point is this, council.
So yes, you were very consistent in providing no terms of reference for anybody. I agree.
Because we wanted the commission to be totally independent and to determine what job
for
description it was going to give to the secretary. But even if we didn't give Ramatulai Sarr a letter, that would have been a flaw. It would have been unfortunate. There were things fell through cracks in those days. As I said, these were still the early days. We were overwhelmed. Everyone was overwhelmed at the ministry. And so it would not be unreasonable or a surprise to me if certain administrative lapses occurred at that time, including not issuing appointment letters to someone like Ms. Ramatulai Sarr, who was a staff member of the ministry up to that point before she was moved on a full-time basis with the commission. So I will not sit here and claim perfection in our processes at the ministry. We were overwhelmed. We had a lot to do. And these issues, I think, expose the challenges we had at the time. But certainly, she should have received a letter.
All right. Trying to wind up at least 45 minutes. And I'm surprised they're being so nice about it.
Oh, it's our last day, and I would, in my own interest as well, want us to exhaust all the issues that
We will definitely exhaust all the issues.
Okay.
But I will have a surprise for you tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes. However, perhaps we can go back to an issue, the sales. And we had asked that emails be forwarded. I'm not sure whether that was done.
No, it was not done. I got home late and tired.
I can imagine.
I have to take my time to search for those emails. I have been in touch with one of the table office staff. I will be sent an email where I will I'll forward the emails that I have.
Fair enough. I wish to go back to one point in the sales, in the early sales. That was the sale of the cattle.
Mm-hmm.
When the commission was going to sell cattle, were you informed?
No, I was not informed by the commission, but I was informed by a member of the public who said to me, because I saw again excerpts of the testimony of Justice Tabali, but my recollection was that the commission did advertise through the radio the planned sale of the cattle, the cows, because I had a member of the public who was interested in buying. And so when the commission cancelled the sale again through announcement on the radio, he called me and said, what is happening? They have cancelled the sale of the cattle. And I said, I have no idea what is happening. It's not under my ministry. So sit tight, be patient. I'm sure they will announce again. So that's how I knew that the sale of the cattle was advertised by the commission. So that's how I knew that. It was not from the commission. It was from a member of the public.
So there were no correspondences between yourself and members of the commission.
I do not recall. I do not recall. You know, Council, again, I'm sorry at the risk of repeating myself. Selling of cows was not at the top of my priority list. I'm being honest here. I'm being honest here. I had other things that were very pressing, and so I really wasn't keenly following not just the commission. I said yesterday, even the dramatic TRC and the other commissions, I just wasn't closely following those activities.
Your adjectives are interesting.
Well, the TRC was dramatic, of course. There were a lot of drama in that process.
So, are you stating that there are no email threads between yourself?
I cannot recall.
The league?
I cannot recall.
Fair enough. Are you aware that the sale of cattle was not conducted by the commission?
I knew that it was cancelled. I knew that it was cancelled. It was announced, then another announcement was made to cancel the sale.
And but the sales did occur. They were a judicial process ensued after.
Yes, the sale was conducted by the High Court. And I did assign one of my staff, the Registrar General, Mr. Ali Jaro, to go and observe the sale, I believe on the first day or so.
And before I even ask that, the confirmation, the instructions to Mr. Jallo, were they to just observe the first day or all the days?
If I recall, my instructions to him, and I gave him these instructions directly, was to observe the sale, because it was Mr. Jallo who informed me that the Sheriff's Division was about to start the sale of the cattle. So I told him to go and observe the sale. I didn't know whether it was going to be a one-day event or a one-week event. I had no idea. I just told him to go and observe.
And before that, everything had been kick-started by the ministry, of course. You would have been the ones to go to court.
To do what? For the sale of the cattle?
Yes.
Not at all. We never asked for the cattle to be sold. Not to my knowledge.
So how would then the judiciary come into play?
You know, I'm beginning to sound like Amatla Isa with her ass. But as far as I recall, the ministry did not submit any applications for the cattle to be sold. That's all I can tell you.
I can tell you, as a matter of fact, the ministry.
We did? Can you show?
Aside from Mr. Jallo, who else did you send to the sales grounds to observe?
From the ministry?
Whether from the ministry or
to the best of my recollection, only Mr. Jallo.
Did you ask Mr. Jallo to be accompanied by someone?
No, not at all. I mean, I only spoke with Mr. Jallo. Is that the application? Can I take a look at that?
Sure.
Yes, I now recall this, and I'll share the background to this.
Go on. Proceed.
Oh, okay. Yes, certainly, I do recall this application, and it, when the commission made the announcement to sell the cattle, I believe I had an exchange with lead counsel about that. And the subject of our discussion was that there was
An exchange, you mean a correspondence?
no a verbal discussion.
What about email discussion?
I'm not sure whether it was by email. It wouldn't have been by email. Because what was discussed was the fact that there was a subsisting freezing order on the cattle, on the livestock, and it would not be neat for the commission to order the sale of these same cattle. So I believe that was why the commission cancelled the sale, because Ms. Bensouda and I would have agreed that the neater way to do this was for the ministry to go back to the High Court and seek an application so that the livestock would be sold, because the commission would give an order for the livestock to be sold. So that is how we went to court, as you can see, citing the commission's order for the High Court to allow us, for the High Court to allow for the sale of the cattle. So it was to avoid a situation where, in spite of a freezing order subsisting, the commission went on to order and sell the cattle in spite of that freezing order from the High Court. So we wanted to have a neater process. That's why the commission cancelled the sale, and then we decided to go to the High Court to ask for an order to sell the cattle pursuant to the order that would have been given by the commission. Yeah.
All right. I can confirm to you that we are in receipt of evidence of email threads of everything you just said.
Okay. From between myself and Ms. Bensouda.
Indeed.
Okay, I will check
So
in my email. I
yes.
do not recall.
Just to give you a heads up.
But you confirm the facts as I have said now.
Indeed.
Okay. Well, you see, all I need is for you to refresh my memory sometimes. I'm not growing any younger these days.
You look quite young. With regards to the observation, you said it was only Mr. Aliu Jallo, the Registrar General at the time.
It was only Mr. Aliu Jallo that I had a conversation with about observing the sale.
And he would have briefed you after the whole event.
Mr. Aliu Jallo was always in and out of my office. I don't remember some of the things that we discussed, but he was always there.
Okay. You know what? On the issue of sale, Honorable Chair, will come back to it perhaps tomorrow, when I have a surprise, when the surprise gets here.
Okay.
So perhaps just one more thing. When Ramatulai's SAR had been before the committee, she expressed that, not in the words that I'm about to use, that she was in the dark about many things.
At the commission?
At the commission. She was not well prepared from MOJ, and she was not well received or oriented at the commission.
Well, at the level of MOJ, we did with Ms. Shah what we did with Mr. Cohen. We asked them to report to the chairman of the commission, and the chairman would give directions as necessary.
Except you didn't. You did not give Ms. Sarah a letter. You gave Mr. Kurang a letter.
Well, yes, and I accept that, you know, we should have given her a letter. If we did not give her a letter, that would have been regrettable. But like I said, there were certain administrative lapses. We cannot deny that at the time. I keep saying we were overwhelmed. I wish you knew what we were going through at that time as a ministry as a whole. But nevertheless, I am not privy to the inner workings of the commission and how they were functioning.
All right. At this juncture, I would hand over the committee. Chair.
All right. Thank you so much, Council. But did you say the issue of sales, we treat that tomorrow, or what did you say?
No, the committee can go ahead and ask whatever questions around the sales.
That's fine. That's fine. I just want to confirm that.
Yes. I just had stated that the issue might be revisited tomorrow.
Okay.
Once, by surprise,
that's fine. That's okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Tambedou. It's been a long day. You know, I said that in the morning. Yes. It's going to be a long day. Of course, we will finish it so that you can leave on time. So, as usual, we will also have some questions for you. I know with my colleagues. Today we don't have a full house. So just three of us. But maybe it will take some time. So let me get into the issue of Rahmatullahi. Because I'm interested a lot. I know you said it has some legal implications. Like, if we want to debate on the issue here, it will take time. I am not legally minded though, but I do understand when a commission is established, and when Quran was appointed, when Jammeh Commission was established, a secretary was appointed. Yes. So now, when Rahmatullahi was taking over, she took over as, let me say, put this one, I don't know whether it is going to become a delegated secretary, because not a full-time secretary. That was a design by you. Was it designed by you?
Yes, we decided to ask her to assume her responsibilities on a full-time basis.
Now, in Rahmatullah's submission, I remember one time, Commission. I think that's too. Yeah, that's something that we definitely need to look into.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to start with your first remark about a commission needing a secretary. My response when I gave the analogy of the indictment in a criminal case, etc., was before I looked at the provision of Section 6 of the Commission of Inquiry Act, which clearly stipulates that the appointment of a secretary to a commission is discretionary. So it's not mandatory. It's not a must. The president may appoint a secretary if he so chooses. When Mr. Korang left, the president chose not to appoint a secretary. And again, it was partly because we were hoping that the commission would wind up its work soon at that point. And as you would recall, being here at the time, I had to come in every 3 months to request for an extent to remediate. But it's discretionary, it's not mandatory, so the commission does not necessarily have to have a secretary.
Now, just to cut it off. In that case, did you advise the president that, when Kurang left, it's not necessary for the president to appoint a secretary? Or was that advice made to the president?
I must have had that exchange with the president when I went to see him about Mr. Kurang. Yes.
Okay.
And then about the meetings, with Rahmatullahi not being present in the meetings. I can't, Honorable, I do not want to comment on the internal workings of the commission because, as I kept repeating, the commission was an independent body which determined its own proceedings, and I wouldn't have any comments on that. Now, obviously, naturally, normally, the secretary would be present to take minutes of the meetings or designate someone to take minutes of the meetings on his or her behalf. I do not know why Rahmatullahi was not attending meetings of the commissioners. I would speculate if I say anything, so I would rather not speculate and say I do not know what the reasons are. Yes.
and you intervened, of course,
Yes.
because this matter was brought to you,
That's right.
and then you resolved it.
Yep.
The way you resolved it is to say, Kurang, because commissioners and the lead council say they cannot work with you.
Yeah.
So the best option that you could have taken is for Kurang to resign,
Yeah.
or you relieve him from his duties.
That's right.
So the same thing could have been done. Perhaps maybe Ramatullah did not tell you. I'm not sure. Yes.
Amatlai would never had a conversation like that with me.
Okay.
Yep.
That's
She
fine.
personally she never brought those issues to my personal attention. Never. She might have raised it with others, I can't say. Maybe with her boss, I don't know, but certainly not with me.
That's fine. That's
Yeah.
correct.
In fact, she never even reported to me about any of the workings of the commission at the time. I don't recall ever having a conversation with Ramatullah after the assumption of her role on a full-time basis about the workings of the commission.
Quite fair. So, okay. Because I have few questions. When you were having interchange with the council, so these things were dropping. But let's look into the sales of the tractors and the cattle. Have you gone through the report, the sales reports of each of the sales?
I have personally never gone through those reports.
Ah,
Personally, I have never gone through those reports.
but the reports were sent to your office.
Yes, and I, for the purposes of answering questions before the National Assembly, I would take responses from the reports based on the questions that were sent to me and provide that information to the National Assembly. But to go through the entire report and read it about the sales, I have never done that.
But you know the sales is where money was made. I mean, and that was the reason why assets were disposed.
Yes, Honorable, it is true that the objective of the sales was to recover as much money as possible. But again, like I said, there were institutions responsible for those processes. They carried out their activities. They generated income from it. They provided their report. I didn't see the utility of reviewing that report because I don't know what purpose it would serve me at that point, considering that I had thousands of other documents that I needed to go through to establish the other commissions and the other activities of the transitional justice process. So I really had to make best use of my time. Those sales have already been conducted. There's not much I can do. I have reported before the National Assembly, as you would recall, several times on these sales and the income that was generated. That was the extent of my interest in those reports, to provide the Assembly answers to their questions. But otherwise, I did not read those reports at all because I didn't see the utility of reading them at that point, when I had several other pressing matters to deal with.
All right, fair enough. I will leave that to my colleagues. Perhaps they will look into it on a specific basis. Now, let me also still establish, you know, earlier on the issue of conflict of interest. Like I said, this might not be something, so that, you know, because we also need to establish something out of it. Just the facts, not to blame or to put anybody under the boss. The issue of the lead council, you know, the issue of social security has been mentioned.
Yes.
I just want to put this to you, just to be fair. Do you recall that the lead counsel cross-examined the former managing director of Social Security even before he recused herself from the proceedings of the commission?
Which of the managing directors?
Graham?
Graham.
Yes.
I think I recall that Graham appeared before the commission. I can't confirm. Like I said, I was not keenly following the proceedings of the commission.
By that time was actually the council, the one you appointed.
It was Pacheli was the council at that time.
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to confirm from you.
He was. I don't know. I can't remember the period. I have to go back to the record to see what period I appointed Musa Bachili and which of the witnesses appeared before the commission at that time. So I cannot speak to that, but I was not, to be honest, I was not keenly following the commission's activities. And it was not just the Jani Commission, even the TRRC.
I'm just trying to bring this to your attention so
Okay.
that we can establish the issues of conflict of interest.
Yes.
You had an exchange with council on the issue of social security. There were many other issues that we have established as well. So I just try to bring this to your attention so
Yes.
that maybe to also get your reaction from that.
Okay.
If you are not certain that Graham appeared before the lead council, we will leave it to that. But we, from our part, yes, we have seen that.
Okay.
Although this is not a material evidence before us, but these were video recordings that everybody have seen as well. So that is why when you had an exchange with council on the issue of conflict of interest, and you maintain your position that the lead council rescued herself,
Yes.
I said, let me bring this to your attention.
Okay.
Maybe that would have helped as well to see, okay, if that had happened, then
Yes.
definitely the council must have stepped beyond the boundaries there.
Honorable, I'm sure you know lawyers are always very careful to not to provide response. A typical lawyer in this case, and to say that because I don't know all the facts, I don't know the line of questioning for me to make an informed
Because these people
been what the questions would have been and the answers. It's difficult for me to say a part of the evidence given by Louis Prom, Mr. Prom Jr., that lead counsel was conflicted in the case of Social Security vis-a-vis the receiver. Social Security, now my mind also went back to that. I'm not sure whether that would be of interest to the commission or not. Sorry, to the committee or not.
Well, Louis Prom, I think his tenure of receivership, but we wouldn't mind to hear from you at least briefly on that issue, so before we can proceed.
Well, I'm not. I have no.
No, I understand your point. I understand. You just wanted.
For the Euro scanning machine, to me, I don't know whether he said the AG's office or the AG in person. I don't know, but certainly it wasn't handed over to me.
That is something coming. We will deal with that.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
the evidence is there.
Okay, but Mr. Prom was mistaken in believing that Council Ami Bensouda was conflicted, because in that case, Council Ami Bensouda was pursuing the legitimate interest of her clients, which was Social Security, interests which were aligned with Social Security's own interest, because I can tell you as a matter of fact, that the managing director of Social Security at that time, Mr. Mohamedou Manjang, came to see me because they wanted to take back their hotels, because the hotels belong to Social Security. And Cabinet also requested me to reach out to Augustus Prom. And so the interest of the government, the interest of Social Security, the interest of the Ministry of Justice, and the interest of Council was no conflict. Because we all wanted Social Security, which is a public enterprise, it's taxpayers' money, to take back their hotels which were given away by the former president under very questionable circumstances. So I just wanted to clarify that. And when I met with Mr. Prom, I also saw Louis' testimony that the meeting was not, I couldn't understand why he thought the meeting was not claim the word illegal without a lawyer, so he would use legal, I guess, illegal in a loose sense. But what we were asking him to do was not illegal. It was perfectly legal, and if there were going to be consequences in the form of a lawsuit against Augustus Prom, the state was willing to provide a defense to them. They were already in court anyway with the owners of, with those who were running the two hotels. I believe it was BPI and another company. They were already in court as a result of their role as receivers. So we were not asking them to do anything illegal. We were asking them to terminate, or rather to hand over the hotels. And if they didn't, and we didn't force them, and we didn't put pressure on them.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, it was good that you. I am tempted to ask this question. I know council did not talk. Maybe it will come further in your testimony tomorrow. I also wanted to ask, because I think it's an interest for the committee and the public as well to know. Who owns the two aeroplanes that are so at the airport? Sorry, do you know anything about that?
I can't recall now what the commission's findings were in respect of the two aeroplanes that were parked at the terminal at the Banjul International Airport, but there was another third plane which was still away, out of the country, or maybe there were two out of the country. I can't remember now. But the aeroplanes, I think Cabinet decided to entrust responsibility for the aeroplanes in the Ministry of Finance and the ministry responsible for aviation. I don't know which ministry that is. I can't recall now. What's the ministry responsible for aviation? Transport. Ministry of Transport and Finance, so that they can engage with civil aviation in the valuation of the aircraft, etc. That was what Cabinet resolved. Because again, the line wasn't clear whether the aircrafts belong to former President Jammeh or they belong to the Gambian state. And since they were parked at the airport and one of them had the Republic of the Gambia written on it, the assumption is that it belongs to the state. But I'm sure the commission, I remember the commission visiting the aeroplanes and even went inside one of them. But I don't now recall at the top of my head what was their conclusion regarding the aeroplanes. So I don't know who owned the aeroplanes, but I know that the government decided to act on the aeroplanes.
When before the commission, because I know government must have to, because like you said, the issue of inventory of assets belonging to the former president was taken, and I think the freezing order comes from the court, but Minister of Justice placed that order at the court.
Yes. So
when that order came, the inventory that was taken, was the aeroplane not part of that from the people who they are working in the ministry, because these are the people who took inventory of all the assets that were under the custody of Jammeh Commission to probe in.
Yes, we did not include the vehicles or the aeroplanes in the freezing order, because like I said, our advice was that if they were found on state property, the assumption is that they belong to the state until evidence is brought to the contrary. It was the other properties where we could clearly see the names of the former president, his close associates, and the landed properties, etc., that we froze because they were identifiable names. But for the vehicles and the aeroplanes, since we couldn't determine title at that point, we had the assumption that if they were found on state property, they belong to the state.
That's okay, because we visited the aeroplanes and then we had a meeting with civil aviation.
There were one or two aeroplanes outside the country.
Yes, we were told about the history of the aeroplanes and the one in Germany.
Okay.
But like I said, since I just wanted to get your reaction on that, maybe we will delve into that issue more, and then we will have material evidence in that effect as well. So the committee will be able to advise itself to prove further on that. Yes, that's fine. Honorables, you questions? Oh.
Thank you, Chair. And Honorable Tambedou, with the Chair's and Committee's permission, I will appreciate if we can have a cut of a video on Prom's testimony about the Euro scanning machine that he claimed to hand over to you, and I believe with some khakis. So it will be great to hear from the horse's mouth. As you alluded, it's never appropriate to listen to one side of a story. So, Chair, with your...
You advise them on the...
On the specific,
yes.
I mean,
Chair, can I suggest we take a 5-minute break or a 10-minute break for a tea break, perhaps?
Okay, that's fine. I think that's very convenient. We can take 10 minutes break. Mr. Tambedou, if you want tea, you can also have tea or coffee. And we will resume back 10 minutes.
Member for Upper Salum. Yes, in short, I did conduct due diligence, and due diligence can be conducted in several ways, including asking specific questions to potential appointees. And in this case, I did raise the question as to whether there was any reason why not any of the commissioners would not be able to perform their role as commissioners. It was the same that I asked also council, and they gave me their responses, including council, who I recall to this day gave me a what I would call a qualified response, that she does not have any reason that would prevent her from carrying out the assignment, but that should a situation arise that may give rise to a reason, she would bring my attention to it. And that is what happened when the issue of Social Security came up.
Yes, thank you. Now, I think also if I go back to testimony earlier from the council, it was pointed out to not about 2 or 3 companies. One you've already mentioned with Social Security, and the other one was about Future Lake, and also the Kanilai family farms, like the Woni Group. All seems to have some relation with Social Security. particularly Suez himself and also the Canada family farm. I've seen that the farm that the council actually works with, who also represent social security and in various matters as their council, we're also making a request to the commission as well. And that's exactly where I think there could be a potential conflict. So if you are representing, a company or an institution, there is some sort of litigation in terms of you are trying them to deliver certain things. But in doing that, I do agree. Maybe the objectives of the government and the objective of the council maybe align in certain areas, particularly operationally. But the finance aspect is different because they are pursuing this thing on behalf of their clients. But that is for a fee. Now, if you see the letters requesting that we will pursue this, but you're going to pay A, B, C, and D, but in turn, the same person also makes a request to the commission for certain things or to the receiver for certain things to be done, then it really paints a very cloudy picture of really who actually is owned by the government to a large extent, or are you there also for your farm? Because what you are pursuing also, there's some financial gain for the company itself. So I just wanted you to try to clarify that area because it's really very muddy. That you are pushing something that at the end of the day, you will be benefiting twice. One on the side of the government as council, and the second one on the side of the institution you are representing, who's going to pay you also. I want you to get more clarification on that area.
Council, thank you for that question. You see, the issue of conflict, as you have highlighted in the facts that you have just recounted, is a very complex one. And it's not easy to decipher at times. And that is why I said earlier that the UN has an entire office dedicated to resolving conflict of interest. And what that office does, as a matter of fact, is to also outsource that responsibility to an external entity. In this case, I cannot now remember the entity that is dealing with the UN's conflict of interest issue. If I remember, I'll tell you now because they are always. But the issue is there are experts who deal with these issues because of their complexity. I am not. I deal with that for my staff, and it's not a straightforward matter. And I don't want to say anything.
What was the involvement of the Minister of Finance with all these asset sales, and as well as the other process that you pursue, which has the potential to have some recoveries for the government? What is their involvement?
It's a very pertinent question. Certainly, under our laws, the Ministry of Finance is responsible for government assets. Assets that are acquired by the government for use by the government. In the case of assets recovery, normally the practice is a joint responsibility between the Ministries of Finance and Justice in the case of assets recovery, and that is very common practice everywhere. And that's why, for instance, if you take the US, it's the Department of Treasury and the Department of Justice. The World Bank also has their asset star recovery process where they have a combined departments of finance and justice, so legal officers. So it's a joint effort. The issue, of course, was debated at some point between the Ministries of Justice and Finance, and for a number of reasons, in this particular instance, the Ministry of Finance was not given a prominent role with respect to the landed properties and the properties that were given to the receiver because of several reasons. Some of them I don't want to sound personal, but at the time that the Jammeh Commission concluded its report and submitted it to the President, and the recovery started. The Honorable Minister of Finance was a subject of the Jammeh Commission proceedings, and he was the subject of an adverse finding by the Jammeh Commission. And that is why even in Cabinet during the deliberations on the white paper, he was requested to recuse himself from those discussions. When I actually wrote to the President when we were looking at the different options in terms of how to move forward with the disposal of the assets, when I wrote to the President to propose the setting up of the ministerial committee, I had actually, looking back, in error, included the Minister of Finance in the proposal for the establishment of the ministerial committee, and of course the permanent secretary of the Minister of Finance in the technical committee that was to act as an advisory group. It was after my letter to the President to propose the establishment of the ministerial committee, including the Minister of Finance, that my attention was drawn to the fact that in order to retain the integrity of the entire process, it may be better for the Minister of Finance not to be involved, but that the permanent secretary of the Minister of Finance be retained in the technical committee group. And that is what happened. That's why we ended up having 4 ministries instead of 5 in the ministerial committee, because of the position of the Minister of Finance at the time. But otherwise, assets recovery processes are joint processes by Ministry of Justice and Ministry of Finance. And what we did in this case was that for the assets that were identified to be used by the government, those were then placed under the responsibility of the Ministry of Finance as the ministry that oversees government assets. But until that point, when assets are identified for that purpose, the other assets form part of the assets recovery process, and therefore the Ministry of Justice would continue to play a role in that process. Yeah.
Yes, that is fine. Now, also, you know, the Ministry of Finance also have another department that they call AMRC, which is Asset Management and Recovery Corporation. I'm not too sure if they were also implicated with former president. If you can throw more light on that, because again, their job was just that, actually, recovery of assets for the government, etc., like that. So I don't know also if you have engaged them or involved them, or at what capacity have you done that?
Indeed, the AMRC, which was established as the official and statutory receivers for the Gambia Commercial and Development Bank back in 1993, was established to recover loans and assets that GCDB had giving out at the time. And so they were obviously still in existence at the time. They were part of, if you look at the legal notice, where we laid out the state-owned enterprises that were to be the primary subjects of the Jammeh Commission inquiry. AMRC was expressly mentioned there together with Social Security and NAWEC, etc. And then, of course, when the Jammeh Commission was conducting its proceedings, it made certain adverse findings against the AMRC in the Commission's report. The Jammeh Commission explicitly found that the AMRC was complicit in the unlawful acquisition of public property by former President Jammeh. And the Jammeh Commission further stated that had it had more time, it would have conducted more inquiry into the activities of the AMRC. But for lack of time, it didn't do so, but then it recommended for the government to set up another body to look further into the activities of the AMRC, because, as I said, they made findings, a couple of findings in their report, that the AMRC was complicit in the unlawful acquisition of property, state property, by the former president. For those reasons, we did not suggest for the AMRC to take over this assets recovery process simply because the AMRC, as I said, was also the subject of an adverse finding and a recommendation that additional inquiries should be made about their conduct, which I think was not unexpected. I don't recall throughout my time here when the AMRC provided a compte rendu, if you like in French, a report of their activities. I believe the way that the government was forthcoming with the assets and the monies that were made, I don't ever recall the AMRC giving account of the amount of money or income that were generated as a result of the assets recovery exercises that they carried out, not just for GCDB, but also following the 1994 military takeover. But in any event, the decision was based on the findings of the Jammeh Commission and the recommendations therein.
Thank you very much. Now, the last question I have is in relation to the activities of the Commission, even though I do understand that you may not want to venture too much into it because they were an independent body. But I want to find out, actually, were you not concerned about their activities actually selling? Because of they were created to inquire, even though the Act gives them the powers, to make certain decisions. Were you not concerned when they start to sell some of the acts, knowing fully that at least they needed to present a report to the principal that so and so actually has happened? Now, the issue of the animals, we know some of the issues actually happen. Some of them are or the cannibalization of some of the assets. But were you not concerned about those activities that they are venturing into, even though legally, they may have the power to do so, but were you not concerned that maybe it may have been too early for them to venture into those particular areas because they are expected to investigate, have a report, and then present the report, just like what was done at the end of the were you not concerned about those?
Like the sale of the tractors, because you did exclude, I guess, because you understood that perhaps with the livestock it was necessary. Well, with the sale of the tractors, again, now this jogs my memory a little bit. Maybe, Council, you need to hear this, since you asked whether I recall the government asking me to reach out to the Commission to ask them to defer the sale. Your question now actually reminds me that indeed I had reached out to Council Ami Bensouda to raise the possibility of deferring the sale of the tractors until the government reverts. And I recall Council Bensouda's response. And I recall this response because she used a very bizarre word at the time for tractors. She said they were being cannibalized. And that's how I recall the conversation, because of the word, the cannibalization of the tractors. It was used in a very awkward way, because cannibalization is understood to involve human beings and not machines. But anyway, she raised concern that the tractors were being cannibalized. In other words, parts of the tractors were being stolen from where they were assembled. Parts were disappearing, etc. And if quick action is not taken, the tractors would be worthless. And so that was the pressure which prompted the Commission to sell the tractor. So I was not concerned as such, because in my view they had the power to do so if they believed that there was risk of dissipation or perish of the material. So I was not concerned. In any event, I was of the view that they were an independent body. They were acting independently. And again, like I said, Honorable, honestly, at that time, I had too much on my plate. You would recall that I was perhaps the minister who most visited the National Assembly at the time. And that's just the National Assembly part. There were so many other things that were going on in this country around the Ministry of Justice that really I I would set up these commissions and then move on to the next one, like a production line in a factory. And those were my preoccupations, honestly.
Yes, thank you. Pardon me, Chair. That was supposed to be my last question, but then something came to mind. In relation to the former president, again, for assets landed or otherwise outside the country, was there any particular time where the ministry made attempts by various ways to try to find out if there were assets in foreign land, bank accounts, shares, etc., that perhaps the government can do something to try to was there anything like that?
Yes, indeed. And this is a very important question, because from time to time, occasionally, that's why I said those who are outside the country are too informed sometimes, because they make assumptions and they create their stories based on those assumptions. I have heard people say no efforts were done by the ministry to find out about the assets of the former president, as if this was a process where the ministry needs to announce it publicly that we are tracking the assets of the former president. The whole point of international asset tracking effort is confidentiality, is discretion. Once you announce it, the assets, will be moved. So you don't say this in public. And because we didn't say this, some people thought we did nothing, which was not true. And I'll tell you what we did. First, as I said, when the Jammeh Commission submitted its report, we wrote to the Swiss government to request for the freezing of accounts of one of the companies that was operating here in close collaboration with the former president, but which had a head office in Switzerland. And the Swiss government did freeze the accounts. It had millions of dollars in that account, and that was frozen while we were negotiating with the Swiss, because it's one thing to have the cooperation of the Swiss government, and I recall I was the one who personally reached out to the Swiss ambassador in Dakar, and she put me in contact with the relevant Swiss office, and then the ministry reached out and we wrote our correspondences, and as a result of which the accounts were frozen. But because Switzerland is a country of laws as well, they can't just freeze the account and just leave it as that. We needed to now follow up to show the link that the monies that were being deposited in that account were the proceeds of a criminal enterprise, of a crime, if you like, from the Gambia. And we had the Jammeh Commission report, which is what we attach as a first step to the Swiss courts. This is where I left that matter when I left office. So we had that. That was one. Two, my Solicitor General and I, together with the former High Commissioner of the Gambia to the UK, Ambassador Blaine, met with a UK law firm in London that was specialized in assets tracking. They were ready to help us trace the former president's foreign assets and accounts. They had information that was helpful to us, and we agreed with them on a no trace, no fee basis. And the idea was, if they traced the assets and located them, and the Gambia government secures those assets, then they would be paid from those assets. And the agreement at the time was about 25%. 25% because they would expend their own costs to track and find those assets. That was done with a firm in the UK, an assets tracking firm in the UK. And another effort was done. This time it was very highly confidential by myself with another assets tracking firm in Dubai. I am saying all of this now because all of this is in the past. But we again contracted. They were introduced to us here in Banjul by a Gambian, and they also had information about the former president's assets and accounts in the Middle East, and so they wanted to be engaged to track those assets. Again, the arrangement was the same: no recovery, no fee arrangement, about 20 to 25% again with that. So those efforts were deployed to seek the foreign accounts and assets of the former president, and I left the ministry with all those processes still in place. I don't know what has happened, whether there were any yields in the end from those processes. But these were the efforts that were deployed at the time.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll pursue that, and I think those answers will be really very helpful for us, and the committee will pursue that from where you stop or what next actually has happened. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so very much, Mr. Tambedou. It has taken a long day, but now we have come to the end of the day. Council, is Diba around?
Yes, Honorable Chair.
Yeah, I just wanted to know whether he has anything to clarify before we.
No question.
No questions,
for today.
huh?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Till tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, then we will close for today. We'll adjourn the meeting till tomorrow. Tomorrow morning. Tomorrow we'll start at 10 o'clock again.
10 o'clock.
Yes. We will definitely try and start at 10.
I will be here.
At most 10:30.
I will be here.
Sure.
I will be here.
So we can finish tomorrow. All right, meeting adjourned till tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Friday.